with Crest of Steel was we worked on it as a concept piece. The Fountain of Lamneth, the whole second side was just like that. And that was really the precursor to 2112. We wanted to continue working in that frame. I mean, if you go to Necromancer, that's where we first tried that sort of arrangement where it was multi-parts and a longer concept story, lyric line. But really, Crest of Steel was the implementation of that in a whole side, which was where we were going to go with 2112.
It was a practice run.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a great way
I
to
remember getting a delay line. I think it was on the last day of doing Caress of Steel.
Yep.
And I remember we played with it and laughed a lot.
Yeah, it was. I think it was an Eventide, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. We had the octaves.
Right.
And, yeah. And it was like, you know what, this is going to be great when we do the next record.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
of
you're
course
right.
it was. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I really quite understood how good it was going to be.
I know, it was fun.
It was.
At that moment,
it was.
but you're
I
right.
remember laughing.
We ended up
Way too
using
long.
it with Neil's voice for the
Yeah, exactly.
the priests.
Yeah.
It's our impression that it was like that right from the very beginning. We were writing that, you know, after coming off of Crest of Steel, we knew that that's the way it was going to be. So that was the way things were arranged and written at the time.
And you couldn't really cut those up into separate songs and really think of them as separate songs.
Yeah.
It was a story.
Yeah.
So it needed to be a concept.
Yeah. Well, we were touring a lot at the time, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity to write. Certainly not the way we would later on, where we could park ourselves somewhere and concentrate on it. So the record was really written in sound check and in dressing rooms, in the back of the car, the van. I don't know if we had the van yet, but certainly in the back of the car. Every chance we got, we would work on it that way and then rehearse it in sound check. And then I think that once we got sort of all the parts written, I don't know if we went somewhere or if we did it at Toronto
Not at that
Sound.
stage we didn't, because I seem to remember we were doing like 3 albums in a 2-year time span at that point. So that's a lot of recording and a lot of writing.
Right.
So when you came in, we would sort of go through the material and we'd do pre-production on the spot, really.
Yeah.
Take a couple of days to make sure we knew where we were going.
Yeah. And that was all done at the studio. At
Yeah, it
Toronto
was,
Sound.
yeah. At that stage, yeah. Yeah.
And how long did we spend making the record? I seem to recall that it was like 2 weeks.
Well, it was 2
maybe?
weeks for Fly By Night, wasn't it?
Was it?
I think it might have been 3 for Caress of Steel. I don't have a log on it, so I can't be really sure. But and I think maybe closer to 3.5 weeks for 2112.
Yeah.
Not sure though.
Yeah.
I
know it was
all the records
pretty
for
quick.
Toronto Sound have vanished. But,
Yeah, you know, I think when we were prepared, because of the way we had to write at the time, we were well rehearsed. We knew the material, so we got through it fairly quickly.
And you were also very quick on making any changes that we wanted to make.
It was so much simpler then, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it?
It was just looking at the track sheet, you can see we had 4 tracks left over.
We did.
For example,
I was actually a bit
on
shocked.
Lessons. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Would have thought we would have used it up.
Yeah, yeah.
But
well, I mean, obviously later it was 23 tracks of drums, 1 track for bass, 1 track for guitar, and time code.
Yeah.
And then another 24.
Right. Onto the slaves.
Yeah.
I think we were all up for the lyrical content and concept that Neil had at the time, right from the get-go.
Absolutely.
The setting being in the future and science fiction.
Engaging story that worked.
Yeah.
And the sci-fi aspect of it was important at that point.
It came at a good time too. We were getting so much flack from the record company about the dismal sales of Caress of Steel and response that it was, it was really our protest record. And this was about, our hero fighting against the man.
Yeah, that's true.
That was the whole story. So
I wasn't really
appealing.
privy to all the angst that went down because, I was in the studio. You guys were like daily bombarded with it, so I wasn't really as aware of that. But I loved the story, and the whole sci-fi thing was exciting. So we just went for it.
Yeah.
The we have assumed control was Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah, unmistakably Neil.
Right.
I'm surprised people ask about that.
Yeah, because I don't think we really affected his voice or anything. We put something on it, but his voice was really that low.
Exactly.
He sounds like
He's
a priest.
huge. Don't you know?
Yeah.
We did that live in the studio.
That's right. And
contrary to some of the stories.
Right. And when he was doing it, of course, we were fiddling around with this delay
the
line.
harmonizer.
We probably spent 2 hours laughing hysterically with all this stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know if any of that exists. That would be fun to.
Yeah, it would.
Maybe it wouldn't be fun to listen to it.
Yeah, I never kept. The only thing we would have would be like at the time would have been an echo reel.
Yeah, which I don't think we even.
No.
Yeah, we were just fiddling around with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's like taking pictures. We never took pictures back then.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nowadays, we take so many pictures. It's crazy.
That's right.
Back then, I don't have a record of those.
That's because we have a phone with a camera on it.
There you go.
You know? Or a camera with a phone on it. It's more like it. We needed to write all the pieces before the overture. I think the overture came at the end. Once we had all the pieces.
Yeah. For sure.
Then we kind of developed the whole arrangement from all those pieces.
That's right.
For the overture. So I think that the beginning came at the end of Cyborg.
Right. I remember that doubling vocals was an important aspect of perspective changes, certainly in the overture, and, that whole side. Mm-hmm. Some of the perspective changes were done having splitting vocals and
we did that the whole opening star space thing with Hugh.
That's right. Yeah, Hugh played ARP Odyssey.
Right, and did you used to get that kind of board feedback? I remember you had this.
Yeah, we did have some
technique
feedback going on.
That you just looped.
Looping the echo sends.
Right, on the console.
Because you could just
as
back
it's
it
starting
off
and pull it back so it would create these swells. Yeah. And we did that on Hemispheres as well later on. Yeah.
Also the explosion. Mm-hmm. I forget how we did that. I think it was I think it was a 57 cranked through the Neve preamp and then just whacking it and adding delays and what have you. That was so it's been a while.
There was some kind of fun experimental techniques.
Yeah,
we were pretty straightforward on the recordings. I think we would double guitars, double vocals. And everything was pretty fixed after that. There were no harmonies and.
No, we were always minimalistic in that respect. Mm-hmm. Even keyboard-wise, we didn't get into that until later on.
That's right.
There wasn't any keyboards other than Hugh.
It was nice and simple.
Yeah, it was.
For Discovery, the idea was that the hero came across a guitar in a cave, a musical instrument, in our case it was the guitar. And of course, it's not going to be a tuned guitar.
And it'd be rusty.
Yeah. So to recreate the whole idea that this was a long forgotten instrument, we needed to detune it and then tune it up. And I think when we initially started doing it, the detuning section was probably about 15 minutes.
It was like,
And the guitar was not an easy one to tune. It was a borrowed Stratocaster.
Yeah.
But so we've determined how long we needed this part to be. So I think I detuned the guitar ever so slightly and played each individual string at the beginning, and then just kind of tuned it so it was quickly into tune, and then the whole idea of finding a voice in the instrument, it just sort of develops.
And that was done in real time.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't do any fancy editing.
Yeah, there was no editing. There was no drop-in or anything.
So it was just a question of figuring out how long it should take and how much detuning.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
And then just playing the whole piece all the way through.
Exactly,
and did it a bunch of times.
Yeah, we did.
Before we got the one that felt right and all the parts worked and my fingers didn't revolt.
think it was an effects library or something that I had access to, and managed to dig out some waterfall sounds.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
water
I remember
dripping
we
in the
all
cave.
had to go to the bathroom so often when we were doing that. Just the sound.
Like a mountain on outside wall.
For equipment, I think I had my Gibson ES335, which I'd had for a long time. I had a Les Paul with me, a Les Paul Standard in the studio. I borrowed a Fender Stratocaster from a friend. I got a Marshall 50 and a Marshall 100-watt amp. I'm not sure which series it was, but and a cabinet, 412 cabinet, and a Fender twin reverb.
On Geddy's vocal recording, it was he was very quick. He knew the songs well, and we just made small adjustments to cadences and melodies, but generally he was fast, and doubling too. He was quick at doubling. So they didn't take a lot of time, and especially when you're singing up in the stratosphere, it's you don't want to take a lot of time.
Yeah. He was always good at doubling. Right
He
from,
was,
right
yeah.
From the
Well,
start.
so were you too. The two of you had the
It's
doubling
innate.
thing down pat.
Yeah.
The song selection for the album was pre-designated, as far as I remember. I mean, we never recorded tunes, did we? That we didn't put on a record.
Exactly.
There's
Ever.
nothing in the archives that wasn't released.
Right.
And we were at the beginning then, so.
We never thought that unless you were going to put it on the album, there was no point to write songs that you were going to throw away. It
Great
just
concept.
Didn't make sense. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Making songs really perfect and then going, I don't think I want it on the album.
Yeah, let's cut those 5 or 8 songs. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That's, I don't know, I've always thought that was crazy.
Yeah, not a good business deal for a producer anyway.
No, but that's the way record companies used to look
I know,
at it.
I know.
They were the worst.
Yeah.
Whether it was autobiographical, I don't know. I think maybe it was a dream of ours that would be autobiographical, but we didn't have the resources at the time. So it was semi-autobiographical. But as I said, we continued our research throughout the whole process at full speed.
And during the tune.
And mostly during the tune. And the other ones too.
Yes.
While we were at it.
Yeah. A lot of research needed to be done.
You can never do enough research.
That's right.
All our writing was kind of like that. We would write something and then afterwards during the arrangement we would say, let's just drop this one beat here just to screw up the time.
Give it some more interest. Yeah.
Make it more interesting and less danceable. So this was a common thing that we would do. But I think there was a little bit of a Kashmir influence to the way that part works, the cyclical nature and the drop beat and the way it turns around and the drums play across it.
Right.
So it sounds, and you know what, I think this is a real key, and it's a skill for sure to make the simplest thing sound complicated and difficult. And I think we were always fortunate in that we could do that throughout our writing, where we could make really actually quite simple playing parts sound more difficult by just manipulating the...
And conversely, making very difficult parts sound simple.
Yeah.
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 That's a skill too.
Yeah. Twilight Zone was always a kind of a difficult song to play live. It's got a lot of elements that we wouldn't do, like the acoustic guitar, for example, at the time when we were touring on that record. And I think we were, we allotted time for other things.
There's quite
more.
a few production ideas too that come into play that probably would have been a little overbearing live.
Yeah,
and
it's moody, and
them.
you want to keep the energy up throughout the course of the show. We did play it, I think, on the one tour. I'm even not sure if we played it every night, but we did play it live sometimes. And And it was always a challenging one to play.
Yeah.
Because of what Terry just said
Absolutely.
of doing all those production things. We always had one or two songs on a record that we sort of
You didn't
designated
play.
as, we're not going to play this,
Yeah.
let's have a little fun with it.
Touch you deeper than tears that fall.
Well, Hugh Syme was working on our album covers since Crest of Steel.
Yes.
And he was the keyboard player for Ian Thomas's band. So we had a connection, a friendly connection with him, and he was working on the graphics, and we needed a keyboard player for some of the
Yeah.
ideas that we had, and I guess
Plus, he's damn good.
he's damn good. And he was around, and
Yeah.
so it worked out well that way. Often when we've had other people on our records, they've been friends rather than
Yeah.
going after known artists or musicians. They're mostly local friends, and
And it was early days, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there were no keyboards prior to that.
yeah,
So
the Mellotron was a virtually
Yeah.
new instrument at
that's
the time
true.
too.
And the ARP Odyssey.
Yeah,
Yeah. Great addition, though. Just
Yeah.
gave it that that sci-fi, hi-fi sparkle.
yeah, exactly. Oh, we just, for Tears and Lessons, the idea was that Geddy and I would have a whack at doing some vocals and make it a little more personal, just so everybody was, you know, throwing words around. But you'll note that that didn't happen again, so, on another record.
And yet both tunes fit perfectly into that record.
They do, and
sound
they're
good.
very different from each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
there was something in that. We were in this kind of, I don't know what it was exactly. I guess it was a leftover from another era of a sort of a cross between a hippie thing and an East
I'm not really
Indian
sure.
thing.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
And I know that when we first got the very first kimonos that we wore on an earlier tour, we got them because they were just cheap. We didn't have any money for wardrobe, and we wanted something that was, you know, more stagey. So we bought these kimonos and basically house coats, and we bought them in a market across from the, it was the Miyako Hotel in San Francisco. There was one of those marketplaces,
Really?
and these things you could buy for a few dollars,
Yeah.
$5 for
Vibrant
this flowing
colours.
robe, and
Yeah.
vibrant colors and
Yeah, yeah.
embroidered, and
Yeah.
so they looked, you know, real well made, but they were inexpensive, and you could wear them and get them all wet and sweaty and throw them out and put another one on. So what that has to do with a you know, space album, I'm not so sure, but we have to live with that.
We
I
certainly
suppose.
do.
Just around the house, yeah, with my Order of Canada.
The Mellotron actually had been around for a while, so it had been used on some really cool records, and we loved the sound of it. And
Yeah.
it's got such a surreal kind of vibe to it.
Yeah,
Even though they're real instruments that are recorded within it,
yeah,
when it's played in that mode, it just sounds
yeah, and the
different.
flutter, the wild
Yeah,
flutter,
yeah,
would,
wild
would,
flutter,
would
yeah.
create dissonance
Yeah.
between the different notes. Yeah, because the Moody Blues were using
Yes.
a Mellotron probably
Yeah.
in 1970, 69,
Yeah, I
70,
think it
something
was,
like that.
yeah, 68.
Yeah.
even.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it had been around for a while.
Yeah,
They were hard to come across.
they certainly
too.
were.
And I know that we were already talking about implementing bass pedals and
Yeah.
mini moog and things like that for the future as they were becoming available, and we wanted to expand our sound. Remember, we talked a lot about that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Geez, you know, that's 40 years ago, so we were only really playing parts of 2112, really up until this last tour, and a few tours where we played the whole side, the overture and the temples, and the grand finale. So it's hard to really pick one song, but I've always enjoyed playing the overture. You know, it's a real workout for all of us, and I guess by the limitations of not playing the other songs, I guess that would be it.
Need a second to think this one through.
Yeah, no. If it's not a playing song, Twilight Zone would be.
It was
one
Twilight
because
Zone. That's yeah.
It's so quirky and it's so different. So much space in the arrangement.
Twilight Zone was my choice for Prague magazine last year, or beginning of this year. Yeah,
cool.
It's a great tune.
I've heard them all, and they all sound great. Steve Wilson did Twilight Zone, and it's a really
that sounded fantastic.
Yeah, he really added a lot of atmosphere to some of the sections, and gave it
the
kind
guitar
of a jazzy
solo
feel.
had a jazzy, yeah.
And as you pointed out, the guitar solo, he expanded the solo to make it his, but he pulled little phrases and notes and incorporated in it. I thought it was very clever and very smart. Billy Talent's version of Passage Bangkok is spirited and in your face, and really exciting, really great. Alice in Chains did Tears, and it's a beautifully orchestrated version and arrangement. And Hugh is
playing on it,
which
is great.
Playing mellotron and keyboards.
Sounds very good.
Yeah, it's a really nice arrangement.
Yeah. Different phrasing in the vocal, I thought was really cool too.
Yeah, an emphasis on different parts
exactly.
than our version. I think our version on the record had just a little stiffness to it. If you listen to it now, so many years later, I remember recording it and feeling a little bit that way. It's such a weird sort of ballady song. Yeah, when I think back on it now, maybe I'm not thinking clearly on exactly how I felt, but I do recall it being so ballady and was such a departure from everything else.
That's true. Yeah.
But again, that's always what we wanted to do and to have. Oh, Jacob Moon's version
I haven't heard that.
of Something for Nothing, which is his version of Subdivisions was amazing.
Brilliant.
It was brilliant.
It really
the
was.
way he stripped it down and really kind of made it his. He's done the same sort of thing with Something for Nothing, but he's incorporated a little bit of bluesiness to it, which is really kind of an interesting departure from the original song.
I look forward to hearing it.
Because the original song, I always thought had a lot of punch to it, and it was really cutting and in your face, and there was an anger and an angst to it, I think. And his version's still a little bit different perspective, which is great. Oh, and then of course there's the
I'm dying to
Carl
hear
Hawkins Raskulinec's version of 2112, which they did for the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But now that they've recorded it, it sounds amazing.
I bet.
It sounds way better than our version. Oh, it sounds really, really good. And they finish it off with a little twist at the very end of it. And they've all done such an incredible job, and it's such a wonderful tribute.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so appreciated by us.
Sure is.
I don't think you ever have a sense of how a record's going to do when you do it.
I don't know. I mean, from my perspective as an engineer, I was doing production and engineering and hearing a lot of material over the months that the boys weren't in the studio. So my perspective on it was extremely positive. I remember loving the whole concept of it. And even the songs on side 2, there was some great tunes there. And they had potential too. And those were the days when you could actually have a single in the rock vein.
Right. Well, we knew there wasn't a single on side 1.
That's true.
That was for sure.
That's true.
But there were some candidates on side 2. And it was really fun. I remember the side 2 felt so different approaching those songs.
Yeah.
You know, once we got away from 2112, from the concept. Yeah, no, it's actually...
you have a pretty good memory of it. Especially all the amps and...
Yeah, just as we start talking about it, it just...
Oh, good.
And looking at his face and remembering looking at his face 40 years ago when we were doing this at the console, it starts to... Yeah.